Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast. We help people to combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Austin Wheeler. Austin started as a youth coach with the goal of helping kids in their respective sports in their training regiments along the way. After doing this for 6 years, he started to see certain patterns amongst his athletes. He started to see how different kids of different talent levels progressed over time, given a combination of their talents and their level of family structure at home. He realized giving some help to the dads that are spending more time with the kids would it be a much more lasting impact than anything he could do at practice. Now, Austin spends his time working with dads on being able to balance all the things life throws at them in a timely manner while being able to cut their body fat percentage in half. He does this with a three-pillar method of using schedule, fan food, and activity integration. When we combine all three of these things, he will get you moving and feeling better than you have in years. So please welcome to the show, Austin Wheeler. Austin, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. Well, great concept there because I think one of the key things is, as fathers, I'm a father of three boys myself. As we get older, we tend to get the old dad bod, and we'll get into that a little bit. So, but first, why don't we tell people more about you and who you are and how you got to where you are today? That's what I find interesting.
Okay, well, so a lot of it kind of you've already stated. I think kind of stemming from that. I would talk about my experience in college. So I ran track in college. I was an athlete, but I was very busy in college. So I was an athlete. I was in a fraternity. I was a student. I was working at the time. I was also doing extra research projects and going to conferences and giving presentations on different things to different people. So constantly, I was constantly running around. Now, in doing that, I ended up injuring myself. So I ended up tearing a hamstring and getting incredibly sick in two separate instances, kind of coming from your body shutting down a little bit with sleep deprivation. You're doing that many different things.
Yeah.
It catches up with you, right? So that's kind of what started this whole coaching program is running myself essentially so tired that I ended up in the hospital on a couple of different occasions
Wow.
and going, okay, well,
Yeah.
if more is not better, I
Yeah.
now have an understanding of how far we can take this, right? How much we can actually do, and what where that line of too much and it's no longer beneficial. So basically what happened was my immune system shut down. So I
Wow.
got almost every kind of common cold at once. My
Jeez.
doctor was like, he ran the test and he was like, well, this isn't anything to be super nervous about, but I am going to have to give you a pretty high dosage of antiviral and you're going to feel terrible for the next couple of days. And I was like, well, I feel
Wow.
terrible now. So
Yeah.
do your best. And then, so it was that and a torn hamstring, actually.
Right.
And kind of coming back from those things is a lot of what I do now and trying to get everybody else moving kind of on the same program.
Well, and that brings up a good point because obviously fitness is pretty important not only in your life, but I think is a big part of life. How does that, you know, that idea of fitness and the discipline of that, how does that relate and tie into like achieving goals?
So a lot of it is your ability to keep moving, I would say. Uh, life is interesting, right? We can sit and we could sit here for the next 3 hours and plan out the next week, right? And then nothing go according to plan, even though we spent the entirety of today going into detail and figuring out how every hour and minute was going to work. A lot of it is about keeping moving. So which is one of the reasons I was like really kind of in tune with what you're doing here on your podcast because I think people often get confused with this ideal of I need to be I need to be Dwayne the Rock Johnson in the gym a month from now.
Yeah.
It's like I need you to be better than you were last week. If you're that inch better than you were last week, we're on the right track here. If you're that inch closer, then we're on the right track here. So in terms of kind of getting it done, a lot of it is how are we going to break down your overall large goal into thousands of different micro goals in a sense, and keep you moving towards that larger goal on a day by day kind of building a wall brick by brick sort of basis instead of looking at the whole overarching project all at once.
It's a good analogy. Build the brick, the brick wall brick by brick, because yeah,
Mhm.
small movements every day really help. I mean, you don't have to go out there and, I just hear about these younger people that want to go out and work out and they're at the gym for 2, 3 hours at a time. Um,
7 days a week, yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
wait a second here.
Granted, I've been that guy. I can't. I it's like I want to discourage it because I've done it before and I know how detrimental it can be, but I also don't want to say too much because it's like, I've been that kid before. Let me not. Let me
Yeah,
not talk too much
unfortunately,
smack.
yeah, you can
Yeah,
take the horse to water, you can't make him drink, right?
exactly, exactly. Been that
Well,
kid before, but
and that's
yeah,
it, if we can step into that for a minute, because yeah, I was there too. I mean, going to the gym, I wasn't necessarily there 2, 3 hours a day, but I just didn't have the time when I was in college. Yeah, I'd go to the gym after work, so I'd be tired from working all day and going to class, and then I'd work out for an hour, maybe hour and a half. But I was always active away from school too. I mean, I was doing stuff. I had a house, so we, have yard work to do and things like that. We had stuff around the house we had to do. We weren't sitting still by any means, but as we've, a newer generation, a lot of things are online or in front of where you're sitting a lot. How do you help people to get through that? And as you get into more employment, you're sitting more. What are some ways people can, you know, if you will, step into that idea of movement, even when they have jobs and things like that where they're sitting a lot?
yeah, 100%. So I think the biggest thing that to focus on with that is that you start to see, so you get not only physical benefits but psychological benefits from working out and physical activity. Those psychological benefits start to come in at about 10 minutes of a relatively intense workout.
Wow. Okay.
So it's one of those things where I'm usually kind of leaning people more towards the, hey, if you can get out for 5, 10 minutes a day and do something, right, then you're better than nothing. So let me ask you this, because this is one of the ways I kind of the easiest hacks I have, I think, in my opinion. How you said you have three boys? How old are they?
They're 20, 24, and 25.
Okay, so they're grown. All
Yeah.
right. So typically for parents of
Yeah.
younger children, right? My word of advice is that the things that they want to do and the things that you ought to do are probably not that far apart, right? If you're saying, hey, I've got an 8-year-old and I can't figure out a time to work out, it's like you can take your 8-year-old into the yard, grab two sticks, hand him one, and say, let's play Star Wars. You will get your cardio done for the day, I promise you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of that,
If you have a dog, you
that
will too.
and that's what I do now. It's like I gotta go finish this, go run around, and then get to working with a couple clients. But I gotta finish a workout here first, so he's calm enough for the rest of the day,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of the direction I go is the little kind of 5 minute movements that you can get done every day. I think kind of like I was saying earlier, a lot of people get obsessed with the idea of, hey, I need to go be Dwayne the Rock Johnson, or I need to go be DK Metcalf or Stephen Curry. It's like, let's start small, because if you
Yeah.
start doing what they're doing, you are going to hurt yourself. This is not going to be a good time. We're not going to make progress. Like it's not necessary for you to even do that. Okay. I don't need you to be David Goggins tomorrow. Granted, I love David Goggins. I don't need you to try and do that tomorrow, though.
Right.
Okay. He
Right.
wins marathons because he spent years doing it. As far as most people, if I can get you at a high intensity 10 minutes every day, it's like that's light years beyond where people usually are.
Right.
So the small steps in terms of I guess it's a long roundabout way to answer your question, but the small steps, the 5 minute easy kind of the things that are easy to check off the to-do list.
And that's a good point. I mean, I'm in Florida, so we've got nice weather all the time, so we can get out there
Oh
and
yeah,
do stuff like that. We don't have to worry about a snowfall. Every once in a while, you got to worry about a hurricane, but you see people out in those too. So, people are
yeah.
always outside. you know?
I've, I've seen people surfing in hurricanes
Yeah,
on social media recently. I didn't know that was something that was doable.
it's not highly recommended, but I guess you get your upper body workout. I don't know.
Yeah, you're doing something.
Yeah. Well,
Staying active. You like to see it.
yeah, it's one of the key things I think is interesting with what you do is when you shifted and you saw, the effect, if you will, of the dads with the kids. How did that turn, and what were some of the results you started to see when the dads were spending more times with the kids and so forth?
So I think the first kind of main, oh my goodness, my system needs to change shift that I had was I ended up having a conversation with one of my first football kids' dads about, hey, you can't take him home to eat Doritos after
Yeah,
practice every day immediately. And it's like trying to figure out with the dad what he likes, and it's like, oh, he's like a standard manly man. Cool, let's go outside, let's start a fire. I'm going to teach you how to barbecue. We're gonna work towards a healthier end process that you enjoy, but the baby boy is going to get
hmm
something better from it. Right now, these are kids that I've continued to coach and continue to work with. I started coaching youth in about 2015,
hmm
coming right out of high school. So it's been almost 7 years since this all started with him.
Wow.
Now, I was back at that same youth field coaching youth kids again, and I have this guy come up to me and he taps me on the shoulder and he goes, "Hey, Austin, what's going on?" And I'm like scared because this dude is like maybe 6'3", 6'4", full beard, about 240, 250 pounds, and he's not chubby at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the guy that is tapping you on the shoulder, calling you by name, it's like I didn't cut anybody off on the way over here. Like I don't know what
Yeah.
you need. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out in my head what did I do at, right where what happened? Something went wrong. Where did it go wrong? Right. Turns out this is the same kid that I had a conversation with his dad about Doritos after
Right.
practice.
Wow.
Now this kid is I think Division II linebacker
Wow.
and is huge. And it's like he dwarfs me as an individual, right? So I'm like 5'10", about 190. So I'm like an average size guy.
Yeah.
And he made me feel small. Very,
That's
and it
something.
was just kind of like, okay, so this is the if I focus on this is the result of me working with kids via focusing on the dads instead of focusing on the kids. At a certain point you get this realization like, yeah, you're 8. I can tell you need to make better health food, better choices in terms of what you're eating.
Right.
But you're 8. You're not going to the grocery store. You're not deciding what the budget for Walmart this week is. You're not the one deciding when you're going to get up or when your family gets up in the morning. And all of these other different things that I was like, I can spend all of this time coaching kids, but if I don't coach the parents to do everything else
Right.
time wise correctly, then I'm not getting the kind of results that I need to. And that was my first interaction with, oh, if I coach the parents instead of the kids end up ridiculously larger than me playing college football on scholarships, and this is all well and dandy. So
Yeah.
maybe just maybe I'm not spending my time in the right place to create the result that I want to create with this.
And that's a great scenario because I think that idea of, the dad spending time with the kids to begin with is always a good thing. As a parent, you say you're always busy, but I'm sorry, the kids come first. I'd always, whether the kids had practice or I was coaching, I made sure I was leaving the office in time to make sure I was there for every practice or every game I could be at.
Right.
That was my priority. I wasn't worried about, networking or growing, businesses that on nights they had games or practices. I had a priority to be there. And it's interesting because I've seen that dynamic too, even with my youngest son. The way he shifted his habits of working out and eating, it's crazy now. He gets so specific. I mean, he weighs his food
Really.
on how much
Okay.
calories and
So he's
what
like a
he
mini
eats.
bodybuilder.
But yeah, he is. He's very
Okay.
focused on his fitness, um,
Pretty
more so
good.
than I am. But is that something that people with your system, is that something you teach people how to do, or is that something they need to do?
And so it's something that we teach people how to make happen without forcibly making it happen. It's
Okay.
kind of one of the things that I learned when I was doing all of the extra research in psychology. So my project was factors that are going to affect drug abuse as far as parental behaviors, right? So, what parental inputs are going to affect a different kid to have either a high likelihood or a very low likelihood to have substance abuse problems as an adult? The main thing we found empirically was a level of autonomy given to the kids, meaning and basically it all kind of sums down to the harder you fight for control, the harder they're going to fight to get out of that control, right? So instead of me trying to tell dads, hey, I need you to yell at your kid to do this and that,
Yeah.
right? Or let me give you an example, right? Instead of me working with, because I worked with one dad and he was trying to get his son up earlier on Saturdays. It's like instead of me having you go yell at him all the time, I'm gonna have you start getting up 2 hours earlier than you usually do on Saturdays. Now, there's no magic that's gonna make him get up earlier on Saturdays with you getting up. But a couple things are gonna happen. One, there's just gonna be more noise in the house, and from an earlier standpoint, which is just gonna trigger him to get up earlier. Two, you are now leading by example.
Yeah.
So you don't actually have to fight with him to get up earlier. It's a couple weeks into doing this. It's just gonna click. He's gonna wake up at 10 a.m. instead of at 12. And it's still you're waking up mid morning. It's not you're still not waking him up early, but kind of this lead by example. And now the whole family's getting up at 9:30,
All right.
and that's just regular. But with kind of this idea that instead of if instead of trying to force your kids to be on par with your goal, if you lead by example and you can make yourself look like, hey, I'm having fun, I'm at a point where I'm now enjoying my new abilities and all of this, then they kind of just latch on to it. It's not something I've noticed. So it's kind of that same, the things they want to do are the things you ought to do, right? It's not like we have to force them to latch on.
Right.
If I can get you to lead by example and I can plug in, so that's that number two, fan food. If I can plug in a couple recipes that are designed to be kind of macro friendly, right? So in terms of the numbers and the details and the nitty gritty, it's designed to be good for you and good for your goals, but at the same time, it tastes like it's unhealthy. Now, my recent example of that is I figured out how to make a chocolate protein shake where you use vanilla protein, put chocolate on top of it, and it gives it a real melted ice cream sort of flavor. Now it tastes like I'm doing a bad thing every morning when I wake up and have a chocolate milkshake.
Yeah.
But from a calorie standpoint, I'm not going over 350 calories. It's
Wow.
got 40 grams of protein in it,
Okay.
and
Wow.
I am not having a ridiculously high amount of sugar.
Right.
So when you can kind of put things together like in that certain way, it becomes less about no, I don't have to force my kids to want it. My kids are watching me eat ice creams and milkshake for breakfast and lose weight and gain energy while I do it. You're not going to have to force them to want that. You're not going to have to
Right.
force them to want to come eat cake with you, right? It's these are
Yeah.
the but if we're conscious somewhere, if we're impactful with those recipes and kind of the foods we choose to put in an ingredient list, we can get unhealthy foods with healthy ingredients, and that's kind of one of the easiest ways to bring everybody to make everybody want to just try it out.
Right. And that's a good way because I mean, I think that's one of the downturns, if you will, of a diet is people, it's so much work and they got to do all this
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
Well,
nobody likes
yeah,
a diet.
you
I
know,
do fitness for a living and I hate diets.
yeah.
If you're watching at home and you hate diets, don't feel bad. I hate diets. You're,
Because
you're
you're
not
taking
alone.
away something. You're not gaining anything.
We're not. No,
But you got to
I
look at
I
the
hate
yeah, the bigger picture is that your health, your longevity is going to be there.
exactly.
And I think I like the concepts you're talking about because what's interesting about that is it's smaller steps. They're maintainable, like you said. It's just switching around a few things that within a short
Mhm.
amount of time you're adapted to, and it's part of your routine. And you're getting a
Exactly.
40-gram protein, 40 gram protein in a shake that tastes like a chocolate milkshake. Hey, I'm game for
Exactly.
that too, because that's always the biggest
Exactly.
worry is, am I going to go hungry? You know,
Mhm.
no.
So you want to figure out this I think beautiful balance of you eat healthy food all the time and you're always confused as to whether it's actually healthy or
Yeah.
not. Like the first time I tasted it, I was like, I don't know if I believe the macros. And I was the one that put everything in the blender, right? I don't know if I believe what's in it because it tastes like you're doing something wrong and you're cheating on your diet. Like it tastes like it's bad for you. And that's kind of the goal, right? If we can find healthy ways to make things taste like they're bad for us, it's pretty easy to stick in tune with what we need
Well,
to get done on a daily
and
basis.
that's always a good thing because obviously with when you have a lot of extra weight, if you will, sometimes your mental attitude isn't that good,
Mhm.
and as you start to shed that, you see the improvement, you see the betterment. How do you think that affects mental attitude, the fitness, and everything with the diet?
A lot of it is, I notice, is sharpness and confidence.
Good.
So the people who I start working, like I'll give you an example again. There was one guy that I started working with, and he comes to me and he's kind of sitting like this, and he's got his shoulders real tucked, and he's got his head low, and he's real quiet, and he's going, well, I'm struggling with this, and my posture is bad, and I'm not doing good, and I can't lose weight. I've worked with him for like 2 months. At this point, I walk in the gym. He's standing there. He's got his chest out, his shoulders back. He's like, "Yo, you're late. What are you doing?" And it's kind of like, right? And it's kind of, and now we're at a point of like, are you talking to me crazy? Like,
Yeah.
I can add a couple extra sets of lunges to this week. We're still planning right now. This is your planning meeting. Are you sure you want to
Yeah.
talk? Right? But it's kind of this idea of there's a lot more confidence there, and I noticed that in the jokes that my clients make to me. Right, that's one of the number one ways that like I make sure I know when I need haircuts and things like that. My clients, I get them to a point where they talk
Real.
crap all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And I always look at this as I don't ever want you to feel like you need a personal trainer forever. It's always my goal to teach you everything you need to know for you and then graduate you.
Wow.
And so for me, it's like once you start getting to the point where you're talking crap to me all the time, it's like cool, now I can get rid of you. Goodbye. I don't it's
Yeah.
like you don't need this anymore. You are at a point now where we can get you independently being the role model for your family that you wanted to be when we started this. So now I'm getting close to that point with him, and it's like, man, you used to want to throw up in between sets and
Yeah.
all of that. You're sending me videos of you laughing at the workouts in between sets, and it's like, okay, fine. We'll add lunges. We can do that. We'll add some sled pushes. We can do that. We can
Yeah.
throw a little bit of weight on there. And it's just you I love to see that confidence and that sharpness because how quick people get is
Yeah.
is the second main thing with that sharpness in terms of mental acuity. So in terms of those jokes that people are making, that's honestly one of the ways that I like to structure my client relationships because it's a great measure for me realistically, kind of like I said, my background, a lot of my background education is in psychology. So
Right.
once I see that your mental acuity is starting to speed up, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now we're
Yeah.
getting to where I wanted you, right?
That's awesome.
So it's
Well,
like, man, I hate to see you go, but I love the fact that you're leaving here
yeah, you're growing. You're
differently
allowing
than
people
the
to
way you
grow.
came.
Yeah. Well,
Right? It's
Austin,
not my life to live. I got to
yeah.
make you live better, not live your life for me.
Well, before we run out of time, let's make sure we tell people tell us about your website and where they can get a hold of you.
So the easiest place to get a hold of me is either through my Instagram, or I usually will do like an application link through Instagram and LinkedIn. The reason for that is just honestly, I'm very kind of into it with all of my clients. It's not like I'm going to build you a workout program and talk to you next week. It's like, do this for the next 3 hours. I will talk to you tomorrow, sort
Right.
of deal. So I like having, in a sense, where I get to know everybody I'm bringing on. So I do it like from an application style instead of having just like a click here, get started button. But that application is on my Instagram or my LinkedIn. I can send you the link to that if you want to just post that, and then that'll take you kind of through my training portal from there.
That'll work. We'll make sure we post that in the show notes. I want to thank you for taking the time to be a guest on the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, Austin. I really
No problem.
appreciate the insight and the energy you offer. So thank you so much. Keep up with the great work.
Not a problem. Same to you. I really appreciate a lot of what this podcast offers to all the listeners. So if you're watching, make sure you tune in next week. I probably won't be here, but I know it'll be great, right? I know it'll be something valuable.
Thank you. Thank you, Austin. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.